Hello friends, this is a video for November of the year 2025. November is a very unusual month and as such is a continuation of the month of October. These are 2 months when we experience the peak of this year, which is of course the year of the wooden dragon. So everything is full of events in November like it was in October, and I will try to list them. This month brings all or nothing atmosphere, but also potentially allows deep healing, especially for water signs or people who have planets in the water signs. The new moon is going to happen on the 1st of November in Scorpio sign. Then the full moon will be on the 15th in Taurus. Sun is until the 21st in Scorpio, then is in Sagittarius. Mercury is retrograde for the most of the month. It's also in Sagittarius. No. Mercury is in Sagittarius, but for the most of the month. But it's retrograde in Sagittarius from the 26th. Then Venus is until the 11th in Sagittarius and after that in Capricorn. Then Mars is until the 4th in Cancer, then is in Leo. Then Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini since October. Saturn is from the 16th of November direct in Pisces. Then Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, Neptune retrograde in Pisces still, and Pluto until the 19th in Capricorn and after that in Aquarius, which is a very big thing, very, very big one. So let's go in order. Jupiter has been retrograde since October 9th, but I did not mention this in my October video. And it will remain retrograde there until the February the 5th. When Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini, it is the time to think of these Gemini subjects that are now like the most important ones, let's say. And of course, it is the time for us to think what is happening with children in schools. That's a big topic. And maybe it's time to change the situation in medias and maybe discover frauds that are related with transport and many things like that that are Gemini subjects. For those who have planets in Gemini sign or the ascendant, it is time to go back in time, to go back in the past, and maybe learn some lessons from the past. It is possible that people from the past will appear now for many, especially for Gemini people, and maybe they need to connect again in order to reconsider these relationships or to see why these people are important for them. Maybe they're bringing some messages. Let's remember also that Jupiter, when it's retrograde in Gemini signs, gives good results. This is very important, because there are some reasons for this. I'm not going to explain it, but retrograde Jupiter in Gemini is better than direct. So it's very good time actually now. That is why it's excellent period now for us to learn things, to travel, to do exams, if somebody is doing exams, to communicate with people, to connect people of all kinds and things like that. However, I haven't told myths for the long time. As you know, I was giving messages through astrology by using mythology, especially in the time when neo-fascists locked us in our houses, house prisons. In that time, it was quite necessary to have this symbolic expression. But actually, we need to express in symbolic way always. This is why now I want to tell you the myth of Procrustes. This Procrustes bed, there is the myth about this very strange figure. This myth belongs to the cycle of myths of the Theseus. Namely, there was once a creepy villain whose name was Damast, but they called him Procrustes, which in ancient Greek meant the stretcher. The cruel villain had 2 beds of different lengths, and every time a traveler came to his home, he would offer him to rest on the beds. If the unfortunate traveler was short, he would be placed on a long bed and stretched until died. And if the traveler was tall, he would put him on the short bed and shorten him for the length of the bed. Naturally, at the end of the story, Theseus, like the hero Theseus, did the same thing to this violent himself. And in that way, he actually freed the world from the terror of this very strange, as we said, mythological figure. Since then, it has been called the Procrustes bed, when laws, regulations, and some sort of rules are passed in the world that do not suit people, to which people cannot adapt, and even so-called adaptation would lead to death. So if you have heard about the law of sexual education for children from the age of 4 up, that is now going to be introduced in European Union and maybe some other countries of the world that are under the influence of the so-called Western world. Even, I mean, we are saying now Western world for these degenerative structures in the world. They are not actually Western, but they have great power in certain Western countries and European Union. So if you heard about this law, then you know why I was telling this myth. That law should enter the schools, and subject as is the sexuality should be compulsory in the primary schools and also should be evaluated by teachers. Children will be forced to express publicly their things that they go through in the puberty or through the feeling of this, let's call sexuality. They would be introduced in pornographic and pedophile subject and so on and so on. I'm not going to go into details. What all this means, I guess you know. Now, as I live in Czech Republic, there was a very brave woman who was talking about this openly and what this means and what we expect from children and so on and so on. I believe there are so brave people everywhere in the world that they will be strong enough to defend children from this law. And of course, this is one of the topics that is regulated with retrograde Jupiter in Gemini. We need to address this topic because the house is entering the elementary schools and pre-elementary education also. Let's call it house. Let's also remember that always in history, when a civilization collapses, the world begins to live through its perverted side. We many times said from the 2019, I started saying that, I guess, that we live in the perverted world. The end of civilization reflects that what is below and always have to do with some low energies and somehow it has to deal with the perverted senses. I said something about this in my video, which is very, very important. The name of this video is Jupiter and Saturn, Dead Kicks and Pregnant Crones. Find it on the internet. I know that I recommend this video many times already, but it's extremely important for our time. So basically there I explain how in this perverted world, when things are changing completely on the micro level, that what was up becomes down and what was down goes up, and this up and down means a lot. In the semiotic works they explain that a lot, and it says a lot about that how we perceive reality. So now people perceive reality from the opposite perspective, which is never good. It is the sign actually of the end of civilization. It is not only that law is now actual, but of course there is the whole package of completely crazy things that are offered to people through the Pact for the Future that was signed by many countries in the United Nations. I mentioned that in my October video also, where they speak about climate change, pollution, water and air control, free movement of people and so on, and everything is perverted also. And what was even more crazy was that the president of United Nations, Guterres, spoke about these new rules like for the future, at the BRICS summit in Kazan. My surprise was huge when I saw him there, but I guess they know why they invited him. And it is interestingly what we saw actually in this Kazan meeting of BRICS in October, that United Nations will cease to exist, definitely. Maybe they wanted to show that actually by inviting Guterres there. Either BRICS countries will leave this corrupted organization of United Nations, or maybe they will completely replace it. And we are not surprised about that. We talked about that in my video Saturn in Aquarius that I recorded maybe 5 years ago, I don't know exactly. You will find it on internet, Saturn in Aquarius. I said that at that time actually started this preparation for the complete change, or for the some sort of dissolution of the United Nations and similar world organizations. This is like something that we can expect to happen completely. We are in the process. It will be completed until 2026-27. So now from the title of the video, you see that we speak about some Procrustes bed, which is these crazy laws that they want to apply. But maybe you will say, what are those nests, we said, versus nests. Well, these nets that are opposite to Procrustes bed are actually networks. And most probably you also know, if you follow my videos, that I speak for many years about that we are going to change the system how we live in the world. This is on the micro level of the world. And that we are living so-called pyramidal structures that are hierarchical, and we will live through network structures that are horizontal. I spoke about that in many of my lectures, unfortunately not in English, not in English-speaking countries, but I spoke about that, for example, this autumn in Czech Republic and also in Serbia, in Belgrade. I had lectures on this. I wrote about that in 2 volumes of the scrolls of the symbolic thinking, as I publish these publications. The name is Scroll of the Symbolic Thinking, and I have one scroll actually that is written in English, but it is not about astrological or historical topics. It is more about avant-garde literature and the shift of the consciousness in the time of the 20s. So I spoke about this change from pyramidal to this network structures many times already, and we could see how that will work for the future at the BRICS summit. As you know, BRICS countries promote multipolar world, sovereign states, and trade in national currencies. Means actually that everybody has something to offer to the group, and it is accepted in that way as others offer it. There is no $1 that will rule all other nations, countries, corporations, or whatever. It is the end of that basically already now. Personally, I think that the BRICS summit in October was the most significant event in the world level in the last few decades, and I will not be wrong if I say that this event is the event of the century. This event clearly showed how nations and states will be connected in the future, as I said. I will not go into details here, as I also mentioned it in October video, but I just want to say that this polarization of the world is now getting more and more intense, and for now this is necessary. However, it would be good if this huge division will be overcome in the future, which will probably happen in the coming decades, but not now. It is still early to talk about that. And this polarization, if you want to understand it, think of that what they want of us through the Pact for the Future. This is one version of the future, and then another which is promoted by another part of the world. This is BRICS Declaration of the Sovereign Countries that are freely connected. Unfortunately, who followed this BRICS summit also heard that there were some contradictions there. The journalists, for example, were tested on COV, and we see that from this and many other things actually, that even this Eastern free world is still not free, not only Eastern, African as well, and so. But let's hope that they will be free soon and completely. We will see how things will develop. So this Kazan Declaration has thousands of pages, and they will define to a large extent how the world will function in the future, and that's very impressive that we already have it. And these are that, as we said, these network structures, the nets, if you want. In the context of those events that happen now in October, these presidential elections that are now happening in America, becoming a regional matter. It is not all anymore of the importance of the whole world as it was before. Because before, after American elections, there were elections in all other countries, vassal countries, who were imitating that what Americans did. But now it is not going to happen. It's not necessarily anymore. Or almost not. So, although the medias now also try, as always, to make a big fuss of it, these elections are no longer important for the rest of the world, maybe only for the Americans themselves. I also think that it's not important who wins the elections, because America as a huge country, as an empire of the world, is now going to enter its phase of disintegration. And it is happening because they failed to consolidate during this Pluto return, which was significant transit that America went through. Still, they have Pluto return. It will be like until the 19th of November. We saw that they failed because they could not consolidate and they did not repay the debts. And it will not happen during November, of course. So at the time of the election, on the 4th of November, and after that, we can say almost entire month, Mars and Pluto are in opposition, while Pluto is connecting the Pluto in the American natal chart. And this is great tension. It is about the power that controls the will, and there is great struggle of the clans. Of course, at the time of the election, Pluto is again at that anaretic 29th degree of Capricorn that I talked about in some previous videos, that speaks about unrealistic ambitions of the old political rulers. And immediately in the same month after this election, Pluto enters the sign of Aquarius and will remain there until 2044. So it is really the end of American hegemony. Until November 19, Pluto will be still in Capricorn, and humanity has the opportunity to live through this energy until the end, which is 19th of November, and this will not happen again for the humanity until the year 2254. We survived this transit, which was very, very tough. I don't know how these future generations will integrate the same energy. However, in those distant years, 2254 and 55, not only that Pluto will enter Capricorn, but Saturn will be in Capricorn also. And as we know, Pluto and Saturn make the conjunction in Capricorn in the year 2020. We went through that. These future generations will not have the exact conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, but most probably something similar will happen as we went through. And so, after the success of BRICS and probably the last US election, we are entering a new world. But it is also a process. Nothing will happen from the day to day. Nevertheless, it is very interesting that this process is happening in front of our eyes. These such huge changes, this is something very special to live in. Mars himself is in Cancer until the 4th, and after that is in Leo. On the day of election, it changes sign, which is a separate story. Mars will have very long transit through these two signs, and to explain that, I will need to make a special video. I don't know if I will have time for that. Maybe I will try, I'm not sure. But for America, Mars is very important, not only around the election, but also later until the May of 2025. It signifies struggles and conflicts. However, where Mars is in Cancer, which will be until the middle of April next year, he does not have the strength to fight. This planet is debilitated there, it's in its decline. So it can bring numerous domestic conflicts that are aimless actually. In general, in mundane astrology, we know that Mars in the sign of Cancer, or better to say in the sign of Crab, can mean civil wars. I wish to those people who live there not to go through the war, because actually they are not guilty for this, what is happening. It's not guilty America, but the structures who created it and who were using it. But unfortunately it is happening there. We shouldn't worry too much still, whatever is happening, because actually until now we are doing quite well. Of course that there are places in the world where things are not going that well, many people are dying, but still, I said that many times, we are lucky enough now, because this could be total disaster for the whole world, but it did not happen. So let's hope also that the collapse of dollar will not happen quickly. Now they're withdrawing dollar from the BRICS countries, from Asia, some Latin American countries maybe, from some African countries and so, and we will see how dollar will function through that, what is the rest of America now, and how things will happen. I guess it can also go slow. Since November 26, Mercury is retrograde, and is retrograde in Sagittarius. And the 26th of November is very, very confusing day. Let's avoid making important decisions that day, buying or selling anything important, and of course let's not closing contracts on that day. Then Venus is in Sagittarius until the 11th, and after then is in Capricorn. It's interesting to think, where is this Venus better? Where does she feels better? If you think that she feels better in Sagittarius, because it is so-called a lucky combination, you are wrong. Venus feels better in Capricorn. Indian astrology knows this, and it explains this very well. As the planet of money and attraction feels better in the sign of Capricorn, which is material sign, earth sign. So when Venus is transiting through the sign of Capricorn, some stable connections and relationships are created, business is strengthened, work is established for a long period, maybe on some strong basis, and so on. And this is especially important for Capricorns, Libras, and Taurus people. Saturn is direct in Pisces from the 16th, and this is quite important. Of course, the new pandemic can potentially hit up, and something about that says also direct Neptune in December. That was definitely planned. But you will maybe remember that we said that most probably that will not happen, because it is going to be quite big chaos in the world, and because too big change is happening in the world too. So they will not be able to do the same thing as they did in the 2020. Most probably. Of course, I don't know, but I guess when I see this transit, that most probably this will not be possible. It is even possible that Neptune at the 27th degree of Pisces, which is extraordinary degree, can bring knowledge related to healing and medicine. After all, there are more and more books and documents that are now publicly testifying the fraud of the century. And you know what I mean. What was the fraud of the century in 2020 and year 2021? As for personal horoscopes, let's say that Pisces, eventually also Virgos, enter a new life phase. Pardon. which is hinted at in September, and the period of personal reforms continues to them in November and December onwards. At the end of this year, most of the Pisces and Virgos will draw a line and say, okay, this was something, okay, now is end. And after that, they will decide what to do later in their life, how to function according to their needs, or maybe say according to the contract that they agreed on before they were incarnated. November is, of course, the month of Scorpio. We have described its ruler Pluto a lot in this video. Everything we said about the effect of the transit of Pluto through the sign of Capricorn and Aquarius in relation to the world events, in a way applies to people who were born in the sign of Scorpio or maybe have ascendant in Scorpio, because Pluto is their ruler. Therefore, a significant new phase of life begins for Scorpios. They will be much freer, connect with people from all over the world, deal with social issues somehow, they will be important in the society where they live in. They will expand their awareness and the awareness of the people around them, and so on and so on. So at the new moon, that will happen on the 1st of November, when there are also, except tensions, there are also some very good and harmonious aspects. Not only that starts one new 6-month period for Scorpios, but actually in November, it starts the whole new phase of life that will be quite long. For 20 years, their ruler will be in Aquarius sign, and they will function completely different from now. However, this new moon has this, as we said, opposition of Mars and Pluto. And also Scorpio people can react to that because their rulers are in opposition, So next 6 months can be a little bit tough, but the happy future is waiting just behind the corner for many of them. Generally, when we put this together, many harmonious changes are coming for Scorpios. The full moon in Taurus on November 15th is in conjunction with Uranus, which is very explosive energy. Saturn, Mercury and Jupiter are also intense aspects. I told you November is quite stormy month, so I guess you're not surprised with this. When there are events on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, we experience reality in dramatic way. No matter if it's really dramatic, we experience it like, oh, it's dramatic for us, kind of, We make big drama. And in November, on the full moon, we have the opposition of the moon and Uranus on one side, and Sun, which is in Scorpio, on the other side. At the world level, it is a struggle for financial power and power over resources, of course. What else? In private lives, it is about sudden events that go to the heart of the problem. People who have planets in the last decade of Taurus and Scorpio can expect surprises of all kinds, and especially sudden penetration into secrets and so far hidden topics. After all, something like that is possible also on the world level. Completely unexpected or sudden events are possible around that full moon that can lead to the reversal of the current state of the affairs. Now we could say why, but no. Why do we need again this all the time, something like that? Well, probably because it is not easy to implement new things in the world, in this old world, to implement new BRICS decisions or some similar decisions that will very much bother some groups of people who are still very powerful. Especially it is disturbing that dollar is withdrawing from the world scene and that the BRICS countries introduced a new payment method that is called BRICS Pay. And I believe that there will be more and more such new payments method in the future. Let's see what will happen. I guess many will be, and our financial system will definitely function completely different. Let's hope that it will be better for us ordinary people. And that's all for now that I wanted to say in this November video. As I said, I had many lectures in Prague, in Brno, in Belgrade, but not in English-speaking countries. But if you want, you can order personal consultations with me based on astropsychology, spiritual astrology, even based on feng shui, and based on the method that I call the change of the code, the change of the perception. I created this method by combining Theta healing and Jungian psychology because it's simply in that way that works for me. And I'm working with people on this because this helps us to change our subconscious programs. I also recommend everybody who is interested in astrology to learn basics of astrology at least, and I have an online astrology school. It's on my web pages. There are not many things there in English, but this course is there. And my web pages is symbolicthinking.net. If you like the video, like it, sign up for my channel, and thank you very, very much for that in advance. I wish everyone happy future, and see you soon.